I think we're not saying one actually obvious thing that we're not actually realizing that's a gigantic thing that's hard to measure, which is making all of human knowledge accessible
Mhm.
to the entire world. Like one of the things that I think is hard to articulate, but there's just a huge difference between Google search and an LLM. Like I feel like I can basically ask an LLM anything and get an answer. And it's doing less and less and less hallucination.
Mhm.
And that means understanding my own life, figuring out a career trajectory, figuring out how to solve the problems all around me, learn about anything through human history. That like I feel like nobody's really talking about that because they just immediately take it for granted that it's just this is awesome. That's why everybody's using it. Is because you get answers for stuff. And like the impact of that across time. Like think about this is not just in the United States, it's all across the world. Like kids throughout the world being able to learn these ideas, like the impact that has across time is probably that's where the real like talking about GDP. It won't be like a leap. It'll be that's how we get to Mars. That's how we build these things. That's how we have a million new open AIs. All the kind of innovation that happens from there, and that's just this quiet force that permeates everything. Right, human knowledge.
I do agree with you, and in a sense, it makes knowledge more accessible, but it also, I think, depends on what the topic is. For something like math, in a sense, you can ask it questions, it answers, but if you want to learn a topic from scratch, I think that again, like we talked about this earlier, I think the sweet spot is, I mean, there are really good math textbooks where someone laid it out linearly, and that is like a, let's say, proven strategy to learn this topic. And it does make sense if you start from zero to ramp up to get like a information dense text to soak it up, but then you use the LLM to make infinite exercises. Like you have problems in a certain area and or have questions, something's uncertain, or like you are uncertain about certain things, you ask it to generate example problems, you solve them, and you have questions, and then maybe you need more background knowledge, and you ask it to generate that. And I think, but then it won't give you anything, let's say, that is not in the textbook. It's just packaging it differently, if that makes sense. But then there are things I feel like where it also adds value in a more, I mean, timely sense, where there is no good alternative besides a human doing it on the fly. For example, if you, I don't know, like let's say you're planning to go to Disneyland and you try to figure out which tickets to buy for which park when, well, there is no textbook on that. There is no information dense resource on that. There's only the sparse internet. And then there is a lot of value in the LLM. You just ask it, you have the constraints. I'm traveling these and these days. I want to go there and there. Please figure out what I need, when, and from where, and what it costs and stuff like that. And it is very customized on the fly package. And then this is like one of the 1,000 examples. And exercise personalized personalization is essentially like pulling information from the sparse internet, the non-information dense thing where there's no better version that exists. It just doesn't exist. You make it from scratch almost.
And if it does exist, it's full of speaking of Disney World, like full of what would you call it? Ad slop. Like you just it's impossible. Like, here you go, any city in the world. What are the top 10 things to do? LLM is just way better to ask than anything on the
Yeah.
internet.
Well, for now. That's because they're massively subsidized and they're going to be paid for by ads.
I look forward to that.
It's coming.
No, no. I hope I'm hoping there's a very clear indication of what's an ad and what's not an ad in that context. But
I did a little. I mean, that's something I mentioned a few years ago. It's like, I don't know, if you're looking for a new running shoe, well, is this a coincidence that Nike maybe comes up first? Maybe, maybe not. But I think there are clear laws around this. You have to be clear about that. But I think that's what everyone fears. It's like the subtle, subtle message in there or something like that. But it also brings us to the topic of, I guess, ads, where I think this was the thing OpenAI tried to launch in 2025, and because I think it's still not making money in that other way right now. So that like having really like ad spots in there, and then the thing though is they couldn't because, well, there are alternatives without ads and people would just flock
Mhm.
to the other products. And it also is just like crazy how, yeah, like they're one-upping each other, spending so much money to just get the users.
I think so. Like some Instagram ads, I don't use
Mm,
Instagram, but I understand the appeal of paying a platform to find users who will genuinely like your product. And that is the best case of things like Instagram ads.
mm,
But there are also plenty of cases where advertising is very awful for incentives. And I think that a world where the power of AI can integrate with that positive view of like, I am a person and I have a small business and I want to make the best, I don't know, damn steak knives in the world, and I want to sell them to somebody who needs them. And if AI can make that sort of advertising thing work even better, that's very good for the world, especially with like digital infrastructure, because that's how like the modern web has been built. But that's not to say that like addicting feeds so that you can show people more content is a good thing. So it's like I think that's even what OpenAI would say is they want to find a way that can make the monetization upside of ads while still giving their users agency.
mm.
And I personally would think that Google is probably going to be better at figuring out how to do this because they already have ad supply and they figure out how to turn this demand in their Gemini app into useful ads. Then they can turn it on, and somebody will figure. I don't know if I think it's this year, but there will be experiments with it.
I do think what holds companies back right now is really just that the competition is not doing it. It's more like a reputation thing. It's just like I think people are just afraid right now, like ruining or like losing the reputation, losing users because
Yeah.
it would make headlines if someone launched these ads. But
Unless they were great. But the first ads won't be great because it's a hard problem that we don't know how to solve.
yeah, I think also the first version of that will likely be something like on X, like the timeline where you have like a promoted post sometimes in
Mhm.
between. It will be something like that where it will say like promoted or something like small, and then there will be an image or something. I think right now the problem is who makes the first move.
If we go 10 years out, the proposition for ads is that you will make so much money on ads by having so many
Hmm.
users that you can use this to funnel better R&D and make
Yeah.
better models, which is why
Hmm.
like YouTube is dominating the market for any like Netflix is scared of YouTube. Like they have the ad like they make I pay $28 a month for premium. They make at least $28 a month off of me and many other people, and they're just like creating such a dominant position in video. So I think that's the proposition, which is that ads can make you have a sustained advantage
Hmm.
in what you're spending per user, but there's so much money in it right now that it's like somebody starting that
Hmm.
flywheel is
Hmm.
scary because it's a
Yeah.
long-term bet.